Hello and welcome to Stylish Chats for Creatives. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking to Teresa Trivunovic, and she is a creative lead of photography at a large corporate brand based in Leeds. And we've actually known each other, I would say, almost a decade maybe. And I actually met Teresa back in the day when you were on agency side, not on client side. So lovely to have you on the podcast. It was so weird to see your face on the client side. I was so shocked when I walked in the studio and just went, ah, shit, Teresa's on, which side is she on?
I have that effect on people, like, oh, the clients come in, then I roll in, they're like, oh, it's you. And I'm like, yeah, sorry. What disappointment.
I was like, shit, is Teresa on our side or on the client? I was like, what? And then we figured out like that you've had a couple of kids. I've had more tattoos and moved house several times probably since we last see each other. But it was so lovely to see you and work alongside you again. And how do you find being on that client side now? Were you equally as kind of like, oh shit, I'm on client side?
Yeah.
When you first changed over?
100%. I still do this like weird disclaimer where as soon as I meet people I've not seen for ages, or even if I meet an introduction to an agency or I'll go somewhere, I always say, oh yeah, blah, blah, and I say, oh, I used to work for agencies. I always feel like I have this disclaimer to say, like, I used to be one of the cool kids and now I work in the corporate side. I don't know why, but it just always comes out. But yeah, I do enjoy it, but I do still, my job very much is to, a bit like client service when you're in an agency, I straddle both. So I have to have one foot in the agency and I probably work with them as my team in the project more than I actually do with people that I work with within the actual business. So it is my responsibility really to have a foot in each camp. So I'm sort of like a halfway house, I guess. But yeah, I have settled now. I found it a bit tricky at the beginning just because I guess like process and stakeholders, and when you're an agency, you're a little bit more gung-ho. You're there to get the job done and you're brought in at a certain point in the project to deliver that certain point of the project, which sometimes, let's be honest, is the fun bit. Yeah. And you're doing the fun bit, like one shoot finishes, one shoot ends, then you go on to the next and you do it again and again. Where currently now I go in and I sort of look at strategy and I look at stakeholder management and like working out like what it should look like, is it consistent? And then I get to the fun bit and I have more gaps in between. And I think I struggle with that a little bit to do more of the sensible bit, I guess.
Yeah. That must be quite hard because, like you say, you go in at the fun bit almost. And the fun bit I'll describe to listeners is like the shoot, and maybe it's the mood boarding before the shoot and the production and like the execution of the shoot. So when we worked together this year maybe, I was styling propping for some food and you had final say on what the shots looked like and like what the business wanted from the shots and like where the shots were going to be sat. And you know, they were on billboards and newspapers but also down to like tiny bits on the shelf, right? Yeah. So they literally had to cover one turkey had to cover an awful lot of space.
Yeah, that's it. And I think I still get that like pinch me moment where, because I have gone from, I guess I could have worked on like a whole spectrum of clients, and I did actually do a lot of global toolkits and stuff on our agency side, but now I guess it hits you a little bit harder because I effectively am responsible for such a massive thing, like especially like literally sometimes when you walk past a 96 sheet, but I just mean that, you know, in terms of like the budgets, the media spend, I guess the autonomy of the brand as well, like it is actually a really big remit. And I think sometimes when I say the fun bit, when you're on set and, you know, the music's pumping, you've got a good vibe with the crew and everything, it's very different to going into sometimes a corporate office where you sat with accounts and talking critical paths for 4 days. You know what I mean? Like it is like a nice little mega mix for me because it allows me to pull on both sides of my personality a little bit, which is a little bit more analytical and the creative side.
It's so interesting that actually there is creative still in a very corporate, because for me your job's incredibly corporate in comparison, but actually you're still got a creative eye and like you're still inspiring where the brand's going to be going, and that I feel is quite a big responsibility, right?
Oh yeah, it's wild. Yeah, I think you've sort of just I accept it now, but there is that element as well where when I bring it internally there are a lot of eyes that I go through and stakeholders that I mentioned to make sure we are all aligned before I come to shoot. So I have to do a lot of management on that side to make sure that everybody agrees that this is correct, and then I effectively go and make that vision happen. But yeah, so I wouldn't say I'm completely like responsible, because I do get like other people to go down with me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's so like, for me, it's so lovely to chat to you because you're in that corporate world, and it's like just a different job that I think people don't realize is a job. But obviously someone's got to be responsible with a team to go, yeah, let's make this brand happen. They don't just like get plucked out of thin air.
Yeah, I think as well, like the creative, I don't know how to describe this, like, take it with a pinch of salt, please, listeners. It's sometimes seen as like not as creative to be in a corporate, because you're seen as, you know, not in that cool agency world or not in that big thinking group and whatever it is. But actually, there's still very creative jobs within that world. But the other thing is, I think they think that, I don't know, that like the like orcs grown somewhere in like the bottom of the corporate like headquarters, and then they're just popped out and put into roles and they don't have expertise in them or anything like that. But actually, what happens if you flip which I'm practicing doing at the moment, you know, flipping the narrative, thinking out the positive way to say it all the time. But what happens if actually the best, you know, like, I'm actually a very good creative, so I do it for one of the biggest companies in the country. It's actually the alternative of that, rather than it being, oh, you're a creative in a corporate. No, I'm a really good creative. That's why I work in a corporate, because I have to do it for a really big brand and deliver it consistently over and over again. So it's actually like double-edged, really. I think they sort of think it's where creatives go to die, but I think it actually sometimes can be the opposite. It's where they almost go to like fight it out to a degree, to say, no, you know what, regardless of someone in accountant's opinion, because apparently they've got one when you're in a corporate, actually, this is what we should be doing. This is how we should be doing it. And I believe it because of X, Y, and Z. So actually, it's probably a little bit of the opposite.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think there is I see it obviously to a certain extent, where that you see certain people have opinions on creative things and you're like, didn't realise Susan in accounts. Sorry if there's any Susans.
I was like that. I was like, oh no.
But yeah, like, you know, and rightly so, maybe they should have an opinion on it because they're part of the business too. But when it's your expertise, it's sometimes, I don't know, you're like, what does Susan know about composition of images? What does she know about, you know? And actually, like, yeah, maybe they have got a different view on things. And sometimes I think it's good as well to get more opinions on stuff, especially when you're shooting things, and sometimes it's with fresh eyes. I love asking, say if the retouchers are on set as well, and maybe they're like tucked away making notes, and I'll be like, right, can you guys just come and look at this and see, because sometimes you can get completely like blind to the shot, and it's quite nice to have those eyes that aren't always looking at it to come and be like, oh no, that's great, or have you tried moving that, because that doesn't work.
And I think that's one of the things I did struggle with in the beginning, because actually it's about customer, and actually it's, yes, we all want to work and, you know, shoot Chanel every day, or sorry if you have to bleep whatever brand out or something. Yes, we all want to do that. Wouldn't it be amazing if it was all like sexy stuff every day? But the reality is I've got a job to do, which is to shoot stuff to sell it. And the reality is sometimes I've got to flip my head out to say, you know what, I would love it if I did this with this shot. This would look absolutely epic. But the reality is that's not what the customer is looking for this shot. The customer is looking at how much can they get for the book, how good value it is, how quality it is. You know, like, they're looking at it from a different perception. And I think you've got to be honest, like, when you're the client on set, sometimes it can be a lonely position. Sometimes it can be a little bit more, I don't know, yes, I agree with you, but I have to bring it internally and stand by it. And even though this feedback feels a little bit rubbish to deliver, the reality is I'm looking at it through the lens of 4 other people that I've got to go back and say, well, actually, no, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't know, Mr. What can we call him? Bob on set really wanted to cover everything in gold glitter because it looked amazing. Like, I just can't let you do that. So it's really hard, isn't it, to like find that balance, especially when you're the only client sometimes or responsible person on set. It can feel a bit like you're the Debbie Downer all the time.
Yeah, it's quite, I've never kind of thought of it from like your point of view, actually, like coming on set and there's a whole team that are working on stuff. And maybe sometimes I'm going to speak for most creatives here. Sometimes we do run away with stuff because we're like, oh my God, this is so good. And this is so good. And then when you're asked to pair stuff back, you're like, oh no, why?
Yeah.
And then you're forgetting that you're doing it for the customer. You're not doing it for yourself. And I think that sometimes that's a hard thing to differentiate, especially if you've got in your head, like, this looks so good. And then you have to just be like, right, okay, the turkey just needs a few less potatoes around it.
I've sometimes like, but it's a 25 pack, guys, and you've only got one in the shop. We can't fit 25 in. I know, I'm sorry about that. It's just like, it's always
get stacking, guys.
Stuff like that you just don't want to do, but the reality is you've got to balance that amazing creative visuals with being able to outmaneuver competitors and have the best value, image, whatever else it is that you need to cut through a really ridiculously competitive environment.
Yeah, it massively competitive. And I think, like we were saying a few minutes ago, because you're across multimedia, we're talking like newspapers, Instagram, Facebook, like all the social medias, you're then on billboards, and like there's other people fighting for that billboard on a massive roundabout in Leeds or Manchester, you know, and it's got to be impactful wherever it's sat. That must be really hard. I've never really like thought of it like that. And then sometimes when you must get this as well, and you see a shot that you've like done and you go, oh shit, that looks really fucking big.
Yeah, I have it all the time. And the amount of times on that roundabout, which you shouldn't really say, but I've tried to like take a picture of something when my husband's driving.
Yeah. Same.
But then again, like, I guess the behind the scenes stuff is you don't see all the legals it goes through, all of the how big certain things could be, road safety, like all of these things that when you start to work on the other side of the fence, it become your problem. When you're an agency, it's not really your problem. Someone signs it off and you're fine. Do you know what I mean? But now that all the responsibility sits with you again.
That's interesting about road safety as well. So is there like a limit on like how big the image can be or how distracting it can be, or?
Yeah, so don't quote me on this 100% because it's been a while since I've done that part of the sign off, but there's definitely things about length of headline, size of stuff, element of movement as well. So if you've got like digital display now and how much movement it can have roadside to be seen as distracting. So yeah, there is stuff like that to consider.
That's really interesting. That's something I've never even considered, as I've driven past so many billboards in Manchester, even literally yesterday. And I think there's a really good one out for one of the budget hotels at the minute, and it's a shoe, and it just says like something like book a hotel or something. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway,
and being able to read it at 60 miles an hour as well. So it's probably simple and big. Yeah.
And like you never really think, oh, is that distracting? But then if you're sat in traffic, you're like, oh, that's quite a good advert.
Yeah.
So they are, I guess, in a way. So what made you hop over from agency to client side?
I was poached.
Oh.
Sort of. So there used to be a client of mine, and I'd had a bit of an effect where I'd gone in to do a job, I'd done a job, and then I was like, oh, well, why don't I speak to you about this? And basically it just grown and grown and grown, and I'd got quite a good reputation, and I'd made some really good client contacts, and like still to this day, like I'd class them as like friends that I really got on with on my wavelength. And then, as you know, I left that business and went a few other places, sort of stayed in touch. And then when I had my first baby, I was on maternity leave. I saw something online, I can't remember what it was, someone leaving or some things, I can't remember now. But anyway, one of the girls messaged me and was like, I think I liked something. And she was like, don't tell me you'd consider coming to the dark side. And that the amount of people that signed my card and said that about that exact language about going on to the dark side. And I think, if I'm honest, which is probably a bit of a sad statement, I don't feel this way now, but I thought, actually I've just had a baby, going to a corporate, going to an established, because where I was like a relatively new startup agency. Again, I'd been headhunted to go there, so it was like they'd approached me about starting there. Some like person, I wanted to go travelling, I wanted to work from home before working from home was a thing. They agreed to all those terms, so I'd gone there, and I think I'd just got to a point where, and this is like not a discredit, but when you go into a lot of agencies, like, they'll tell you about the job and they'll tell you about the interest, and literally the perks will be like, oh, we've got a pick and mix station, we've got a beer trolley, on Fridays we all go for drinks, and on Tuesdays you get free fruit. Like, all these like lovely things, but it starts to shift in actually what you want. And I wanted decent HR, a pension scheme, boring. I wanted people around me in a similar wave of life, and I just thought, if I go over to this side now, I know the team, they've approached me, I was in a good position to negotiate terms and what I wanted and stuff, so it just felt like a good time to do it. I also thought it was going to be super process driven, super like I'd know where I was all the time and all that stuff. It's not. But,
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be that. So yeah, that's why I did it. So I went back after. I never went back to the agency from my first baby. I went to the brand.
I think that's really good. It shows though that networking is so important, no matter like who you are, like what you're doing, as long as you're, I think personally, as long as you're like friendly on set and you're like approachable and yourself, there'll always be people that you can connect with, that you never know who's going to help you further down the line. And like, you're so right as well. You hit a point where you're like, shit, maybe I need to think about a better pension. I need to think about all these other things. Like, can I hybrid work? Can I, is there space for me to be able to go and pick up my kids from school? And, all these other things that maybe when you're younger, free beer, pick a mix, great.
Yeah.
Get me there. But, you still need to have all these other things as well. I think they become more important as you get older.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm still into pick a mix and beer.
Yeah, same. I can be persuaded with a good pick a mix and beer.
It just felt like, I don't know, like adulting a bit more. Adulting choices rather than time to explore choices.
Yeah.
I feel like I've done that.
When you sent me over a few little notes, which was great actually, because I only knew you from one of the agencies, so I didn't actually know the other bits about you. But I didn't know that you were an art worker and a qualified design engineer. What's that? What are they?
I pitched to you for you to have me on because I didn't think you'd accept a corporate creative. That's a pitch. It was on my vision board, I don't know how much people relate to it, bit of a tangent, but I did a vision board 2 weeks before, and I was like, be on a podcast, do this, do that, and as soon as I saw your thing come through, I was like, right, that's done. Yeah. And I was like, the power of the universe.
Yes, I'm so with you on that. I love like having little vision boards, or like I write a list of things I want to achieve throughout the year. It's not like New Year's resolutions. It's like, we're going to get this and this done, and like just the power of the universe. Honestly,
I think people think that you just get a Pritt stick, stick it on, and it happens. You have to obviously do it with positive intent. Like, you have to make movements towards each action, but each one of those actions opens something, and then it just, to your point, who do you know, who have you spoke to, it just gets wider and wider until eventually, hopefully, you get onto that checklist of that vision board bit. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
That's right.
So yeah, design engineer. It's a bit of a giveaway, that one, because whenever I have to do, like a bit of schmoozing, I always do 2 truths and a lie, and I always put I'm a qualified design engineer on the 2 truths to like just get it, like something under there. So if I ever play that, I'll give it away now to loads of people. So basically I left school and became a designer. So my dad worked there where I went, and I'd done my work experience there. And when I did my work experience, I was put on a project, and the project was quite creative. It was like doing like a 3D renders, building like installations for schools, and it was quite, well, it was interesting, and it was quite fun, and I enjoyed it. So, and then I think there was like a lesson that I didn't want to do, and they were like, oh, you've got to book yourself in to go see a careers advisor. So I was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to go see the careers advisor in this slot because I don't want to do whatever this snotty lesson is. So I sat down in that chair, and it was just like the only thing really that at that moment in time, I knew I didn't want to go to university. Well, I did, but I wanted to get paid. I've always worked, and I've always had a wage, and I've always had a pretty decent wage for that level of my situation. So I knew I needed some money to maintain this lifestyle of going out with Friday and Saturday night. So I told her that I was interested in going back there potentially. And then they said, oh, they've got an open day that next day, and you had to sit a test. And then anyway, I landed an apprenticeship which had university and college all built in. So basically they paid for me to go to college, they'd paid me to go to university, but while you were working, so I used to do like the first year I think I did 4 days at college, yeah, and then the second day you had like 2 and 2, so 2 in the office, 2 at college. So it was a nice balance between having the lifestyle that all my mates had, which was going to college, having that whole like studenty scene, but then getting paid and actually building like work ethic, turning up. Well, a bit flaky, but yeah, I was turning up and like building like confidence and being out of your comfort zone. Because being a design engineer when I was the only female, and I think there was, the first day I started, I think there was 600 people on the shop floor and I was the only female.
Whoa.
Yeah. And when I went to college, I think there was 2 females in the whole college that I went to.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that was about the right numbers. I mean, I have to bleep the actual number out, but it was a lot. It was a lot compared to me. And then what the apprenticeship did basically is it put me through different areas. So I had to go work on it. So I did welding, I did the oil rig pumps, I did working on the machines. And then you had to do basically like pockets of each before you could move on. So my ultimate goal was to be in the design office. So as time ticked on and I took up all these modules, I ended up in the design office. And then when I got there, it was, I don't know what I thought, but proper engineering design. And I'm talking like, to move something, the quarter of a hair width, that's like the measurements we're working to, you'd have to do like 3 pages of calculations.
Oh my God.
And I was like, this is not the design I signed up for. This is not design. This is, for anyone who obviously can't see, I just did air quotations around design. I was like, this is engineering with drawings. So, and if I'm honest, like I did towards the end, which is really sad now to say because I was actually super strong at that time, but it was a very challenging environment to be in. And it just wore me down in the end. So I left. Again, like a lot of my friends were doing jobs or were environments were a lot funner than mine was. And mine was with like in a stale engineering office. Because at this point I was in full time in the office working proper my job. So my friend was like, why don't you come and work in recruitment with me? Like fast cash, we'll get sorted, do some sales stuff. And I don't know, about that period of time was like, working in recruitment was like working on Wolf of Wall Street. It was like wild. So that was fun for a bit. Yeah. But again, it wasn't really true recruitment. It was basically client services. So it was taking big accounts and delivering into them, marketing to attract people, to then recruit them and put them into place. And then from that, I was like, I set off to be a designer. I set off on this journey to be a designer. Even though design engineering wasn't quite right, I want to do something that is still design. So again, like it's who you know, isn't it? There was an agency at the time in Leeds. Well, they still exist, but under different guise now, like many agencies do. Like get gobbled up, don't they? Over like Russian Doll.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the original Russian Doll version of this agency, they had like a phenomenal training scheme, and it was like real. Like a lot of people I know, especially now as well. In fact, one of the people that I work with on the agency side did the same scheme, but they did it in all different pockets of their agency. So you could start with no experience and they basically train you and work with you and put you on accounts and stuff. It was brilliant. So I went there to be an art worker. So I'd done design, I'd done like tools and stuff. I'd just not been in the Adobe world. I'd been in more the CAD world and like 3D render world. So it was sort of like changing up to that. So then I was in that for a while. And then I started like looking over the fence at client services. And I was like, I feel like they're going and getting the creative briefs. They're actually signing off the creative. I'm sort of on the tools here, but I haven't got any of the creative decisions. They were very prescriptive briefs, like change this title, change this headline, send it on this date type of thing. So I was like, looks a bit more creative over there. So again, and then I switched over to effectively client services. Then through that path, moved into a client services production hybrid, into purely focused on photography and content production, which is where we met. And then I went away and then I did that and then went through a few agencies doing that. Well, a couple of agencies doing that. And then another one where we crossed paths, I think. I started a beauty division. So they were very open to like what you could do. So they approached me about going. And I was like, okay, so I got this one account and I was like, well, I just want to do beauty, and I think I can do beauty really well. So then I built basically a beauty thing, which I loved doing, and I had an absolutely gorgeous team around me who I still speak to pretty much every day. And that was really like a peak, I think, in enjoying it. Do you know, like just doing silly stuff and working till 1, but part of it is because you have to, but then part of it is because you're just enjoying it together and the thrill of it and stuff, like doing like the all-nighters and all that. But yeah, it was nice. And that, yeah, so then I had a baby to Brandside, had another baby, come back in February, and now I'm, in a slightly different role to what I started on, in where now I manage all photography, production, and basically I'm the creative guardian for ensuring that everybody else stays in line with what the brand vision is as well.
Because I think that's important to say, is that you being the kind of creative guardian is a perfect wording for it, because you don't just deal with like one agency. I think this is what maybe people don't necessarily understand about big corporations. They often branch off and use several different agencies. There might be a video agency, then there might be a food specialist photography agency, then there might be like a clothing agent, an agency who does clothes, and kind of deals with certain arms of the business. And for you guys to then all collaborate, so you're all talking, it's a huge machine. I'm trying to get my head around it. But it's like a huge, massive machine that all has to work together. And somebody has to say, oh, come on, you need to put your socks up over there, or yeah, you're doing great over there, and just kind of make it all work together. Because it can look disjointed if it's not got somebody to just kind of go, oh, no, and catch stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's like a group meeting basically every week where everybody has to like attend, and to your point, like look for like nuances if you like. But it is an absolute juggernaut, and sometimes some stuff just does get away because people are so busy doing the doing that you have to sort of take a step back. And there is like, you spend sometimes more time, to your point, having check-ins, because there are so many parallel routes that you're almost doubling up on your work because you're having to check it all the time. Everybody else is doing the same or thereabouts. But yeah, you're right. I've got a handful of agencies, some weighted like obviously to do more than others. But
it must be fun though, going into different agencies and like working with different teams and like all that kind of side. Because I think when you're agency side, you only work with, say, sometimes were you put with just one client? I can't remember. Or were you mixing with different clients when you're agency side?
Both. So when I worked with the client, which is how I ended up in this job, because it was basically they poached me to start this job. I just worked on them at that point, so that was fine. But then when I went to the smaller agency in the startup, I did have like a mega mix of clients, but I sort of shaped that into one discipline, where some of my counterparts, I always remember she was like working on a carpet tile magazine and then like a carpet tile magazine and then some like mega TV commercial or something. So I think that's sometimes, depending on what agency you're with, some will say yes to some, like most stuff, and then others are a lot more disciplined. But I think the ones that I've worked with, most of the time, something came knocking at the door, even if they didn't necessarily have the specialism, they were taking that job on. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they were working it out as they went. So, and to that point, even with the clients, like you have it now where I think there is, and I don't know if it's because maybe the nature that of my job is that I get approached a lot by agencies, but it feels like to me an overwhelming amount of agencies. There is loads, like significant amounts, and some white labelling as well. So they may not actually do that specialism, but they're white labelling somebody else that does that. So it's really hard to decipher like who is a specialist and a bob on at what they do, or who is, I don't know, getting all different people to come and deliver it for them and they're delivering it up. That's a hard one to sort of work out. But yeah, I think that's part of it as well. Like I would just, if I was to move from another agency, I had no interest in going to those bigger corporate agencies. The big, I don't know, you know what I mean, don't you? Without saying,
the big ones. There's I feel the listeners in a little bit who maybe aren't from the Northwest, but there's a big agency. I'd call them an agency actually, and they have an awful lot of arms to their studios, and they can produce an awful lot of things. They produce for a lot of brands that may be people are very familiar with. And they've grown exponentially, I think, over the last 10 years. They've just got massive. But they can also, in a way, I think like a huge agency in a way, can also feel daunting for clients as well. You know, for them to approach you and vice versa, it's daunting to even go and work for huge clients, huge agencies like that. But I think it's interesting you say about white labeling, because I've spoken to a few people who are producers who are micro agencies essentially, and then they're gathering all their freelancers and they're pitching out as a micro agency. And I think a lot of those are popping up now, which is really good because they're more adaptable to carpet tiles or a mega TV ad. But then also how it must be hard for you, who's inundated with all these pitches, to just be like, oh, okay, who are you?
Yeah, and I think that to the point we keep saying, it's about the relationship and the reputation of individuals, because every almost introduction or approach I get sort of says, this sounds like a cold call, blah, 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 but it's not. I'm a real person type of thing. They all sort of sound like they don't want to sound like the person that you don't know, but they do, like, unfortunately. So yeah, I think there's a lot now just going at specialisms, like we only do food, we only do interiors, and I think that is like a really good way to look at it. It's probably all under one roof and just one team only does it.
Yeah.
But I think to your point as well before, is that I sort of feel the need to say that I'm from an agency because, and again, like to my point about I want grown underneath where I work and then just popped into this role, like it's like don't kid a kidder. There's quite a lot of that, I think, when you walk in as a client sometimes to that environment, to be like, oh, we've done this, we've done that. And it's like, oh, well, I've also done what you've done and done this and done that. And it's like, just be honest, just be open, just be say, we've got a gap here, we're going to look at this, blah, 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 or whatever it is. It gets so much more traction because you're like, oh, I think everyone can see through it. I don't know why you become blind to thinking that you don't at the time.
Yeah, and I think I'm very honest on set. And I think sometimes clients appreciate that because they go, I'm the one who says like, what do you want?
Yeah.
What, like, I've done it how I think, and to the kind of guide, because they are always guides. And then you go, do you want a Christmas tree? Do you want a chair? Like, you tell me, because we've also got to get through 6 shots. You've got to sign all of them off. Everyone's like balls to the wall, for want of a better expression. And you've got to get through it. So there's no point going in and trying to be a Billy bullshitter.
Yeah.
What's the point? You're just wasting everyone's time.
I think it's like that thing I said earlier about, like, even though necessarily we might not agree on it, it's almost like because I'm sometimes the one voice in the room, I have to go back and be the one voice in the room on the other side to get all those people. So I need to really be able to stand behind it. Even if I like had some little bits of compromise, I have to go in there and be confident. Because if somebody agrees with that that nagging little voice in the back of my head, when I go and present it on the other side, I'll go, I'm that type of person that goes, yeah, I agreed with you. I don't know why I didn't push for that. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I have to be unpopular sometimes, which really sucks.
Yeah. How do you find you still get imposter syndrome as well?
God, yeah, massively. And I think the only way I can get through that is just by being, I don't want to say authentic. I think everybody's like trying to use a different word now, aren't they? But just being like honest. I think everybody did when they were younger, but I have this thing about, I don't know, maybe like the way that I talked or the language that I used, or I should use bigger words, or maybe I should say more words in this sentence that sounds a bit posher or whatever it is. But I think now it's just like, I've got to where I am because I'm good at my job and I'm honest. So I think that I've sort of got over that a little bit, and without sounding like a bit of a martyr, I'm a bit like it or lump it. But I'm just trying to do my job and you're just trying to do yours at the end of the day. And I'm not very hierarchical either. I do not like that approach. I think that when we go to the pub at the end of it, everybody stands elbow to elbow, don't they? So I just struggle, I think, with the imposter syndrome. Sometimes I just think that I see myself very much the same as other people, and I can feel a little bit like, oh, maybe I should listen to that, or maybe I shouldn't stick to my gumption on this. Do you know what I mean? That's probably why I find it a little bit harder. Because you do have better experience in that area than me. You absolutely do. And like a lot of people have more experience and more creative than me and all that, but it goes back to that fact that I have to stand by it, and that's the difference, isn't it? And that's the crux of it.
You can't just bring all of the team, the 20 photographers, stylists and set builders into your meeting and be like, right guys, now explain your decision.
They've convinced me to do it like this because it does look better, but I know that that's not actually what the customer will want. I mean, but once I leave everybody on set, it's just me then in like really big meetings saying this is how I thought it should be. So
yeah, I can't imagine how scary that is when you do your first big meeting with like shareholders and stuff. I think I'd shit my pants.
I think it's that thing as well. When I first started, I tried to leave like I think 3 times in the first 6 months. And it was because of, I think there were loads of factors. I joined during COVID, which was really hard because even if you just needed to know how to, in such a massive environment, there's no familiar faces, or there weren't at that point to me. Or maybe the 1 or 2 people I needed, you didn't want to interrupt them all the time. And when it was in COVID and you couldn't just lean over to someone's desk and say, oh, can you just show me how to get on this shared file? Or it was like a whole thing of I'd have to contact someone. Are they available? Could you just log on? Could you do the Pathfinder and just like follow my mouse and show me how to get on? It was like much harder to learn, or even like the simplest of things to get through all of the like, even how you log on with all the cybersecurity and stuff that you face with a big corporate versus you just don't have that with agencies like airdrop or I'm not allowed any of that. I can't. All these things that you just take for granted, like just suddenly became a thing that I didn't have. And I struggled a little bit when I first started because, to your point, I hated delivering into big empty environments with loads of people on calls and nobody infused or excited because, to your point, well, not to your point, what I was saying earlier is that 50% of those people could not be creatives. They're just in that call because they've got another part in that presentation that they need to sign off. So it was really hard audience to drum up. Now I just make my own jokes all the time in the meeting and just say inappropriate things, references that nobody gets. You know, because I'm okay with it now.
Yeah, I think also that comes with age, experience, and just confidence and kind of, I don't know how you've felt, but like as I've headed towards my like mid to late 30s, I'm kind of like, I am who I am. If you like me, great. If you don't, cool. I know I'm good at my job. No worries. We won't go for a coffee later. Do you know what I mean? Like that's also in a way people know where they stand with you straight away. And then that almost makes you more likable because people go, well, I know that Charlotte will say if she's getting annoyed or like, or she'll say, do you want a fucking Christmas tree in there or not?
Yeah, I actually had that feedback to that exact point where it was like, well, I've had a couple of bits of feedback similar, but the first one that you mentioned, I've had that exactly bob on where if I come over and I don't like it, I'm very much like, I don't understand, like, can't we just do this and I'll move on? Like, we're quite prescriptive if it's just not getting there. But then the other one I had once, which I didn't realise, which was, I hate getting feedback, by the way. I despise it. I struggle with it, because I have that Taurian trait, which is, I saw it once as like, I don't know, a good example of like how to explain the trait is that I could throw a party for 100 people. 99 people could walk away and say they had the best party of their life. It was an amazing. One person has a crap time. That's all I can fixate on.
Oh, yeah.
So with feedback, I could have great feedback, or it could actually be good feedback, but it could have like a really small bit in it that's like just needs to. And depending on what mood I'm in, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I go, no, yeah, that's fair. That is, I can take that on board. But sometimes, I'd be a little bit like, it forces me to then go, well, actually, how do I fix this? And then I'll go in a whole like redesign of my personality for that little bit, which actually is flippant. But he once said to me some feedback that I've always taken forward with that my mood can control a room. So if I walk in and I'm in a like pump up the jam, put the music on, like I'm in a good frame of mind, like everybody is having a great day. Where like if I'm in a bit of a stinker, I tend to project that I'm on a bit of a stinker. And it's not necessarily that I'm just very open and honest. So he's like, if I'm tired, I'm telling you I'm tired. I'm telling you maybe oversharing is probably the most common thing of it. But it just, I guess people always sort of know where they are with me in that moment. But probably because I'm oversharing and my mood is infectious when it's good. Which, to be honest, is most of the time. Give me that. It is most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. But I do think like I've definitely found just being open and honest is kind of like then lets other people be open and honest, and then they can say, oh, actually, I do feel a bit shit today. Can we just take 5 so I can have a cup of tea and then I'll feel better in a minute? And that actually means that you will work better because you're being open and someone's not just being stroppy for the sake of being stroppy.
Everyone don't deserve to know everybody's 100% personal life. Like, that's your personal life. But sometimes I think a little bit of it helps you to empathise with people, to understand that. I think where I've sort of got to, and one thing I learned when I was pregnant with the babies is I used to, I've always enjoyed having a drink and going out and socialising. And before I fell pregnant with my first child, if I were ever going out, I would get in the bus, I was getting the train, I was always in town having that beer after work, like just drinking or going out. And then I used to be like, oh, I wouldn't have said that. Oh, I can't believe I had a drink and I said that. Oh, I can't believe we went to that next bar. I can't believe we did that anyway. And then when I was pregnant, I realised I said all those stuff anyway. I still did all those things. And I was like, oh, hang on a minute. And I think since that and since having the girls, it's really changed my perspective, and I actually really almost appreciate who I am, and I know that actually when I say something, I probably am. It is just coming out. So yeah, I think that was a bit of an eye opener. I was like, oh God, I can't believe I was dancing last night. Turns out I dance when I'm not drinking, but I always thought that I had to have a drink to have a dance. Do you know what I mean? Like, there were things that I thought I'd hid behind for confidence. I think you can say that about your career as well. I always used to have this manager that I used to always present with. Oh, I can't do a big present without her. I can't do a big present. And then they weren't in my life anymore, and suddenly I just skyrocketed. It's like you just attach all these personality traits to circumstance, and actually it's hard to understand what your values are and what you appreciate, and then you start to see people mirrors in other people, and even so specific as agency partners.
Going back to you having the girls, how do you find balancing a career and family life? Because that must be quite tough, because they're both quite young, aren't they still?
Yeah, so I've got a 4-year-old who started school in September. Mm-hmm. She's dead sweet, dead placid, gorgeous, quite shy, and all she gets from. And then I've got a 1-year-old who is funny, natural born comedian, feral, always mucker, just quite different characters, but really loving to each other as well. So yeah, they're really good. I do find her starting school's been harder than I thought, because I thought that having more routine would be better. And actually, the working life does not facilitate. And I could go on all day about this, and a massive ambassador for Mother Pucker and the work that she does. But nobody starts work at 9, can get to work for 9, and nobody finishes at 3:15. How does it work? One of the reasons where we live is because we've got support around us. We've got friends and family and everything, and the cost of childcare, that makes a difference. So I think, in short, the juggle is hard, but when, last week, I had a little operation, there was some big news at work, the baby was poorly, so I couldn't get to nursery. When the juggle's on fire, it's impossible. I think I have this analogy that I sort of talked to my husband about, and I think I must have got it from somewhere because it's far too smart for me. So it's I must have got it from somewhere, but I'm claiming it as my own now. It's like lanes on a motorway. So basically, you can go faster in one if they're all moving. So if I've got a family life lane, have you heard this before? It must be a thing, right?
Yeah, I've not heard it before, but I'm nodding because it makes so much sense.
If I've got a family life lane, I've got a work lane, and I've got a social lane. If work's absolutely amazing, flying, everything's my jobs are going through, I'm finishing on time, great, and one of the kids gets poorly or something happens or a routine shift changes or my childcare drops out, it's fine. I can keep one lane rolling and one can be blocked. Not the end of the world. I'll just move to that lane, get it fixed because the other's moving. If I have a tram smashing all 3 lanes or 2 out of 3 lanes, it suddenly just throws a whole life into chaos, and nothing is achievable because nothing can move forward and everything is just getting backed up, bigger and bigger behind it. So then I've got to pick a lane, or me and my husband have got to pick a lane, and sometimes it has to be me that picks that lane, is the reality sometimes. But I will always pick the family lane, sort that out. But if the kids are poorly, they'll only get better as soon as they get better. So it's a hard one to juggle. So as long as one is moving, only one is stopped, they can sort of get through it. But when they, like last week, when they all came to a smash, then you've just sort of got to down tools and deal with each fire at a time and just allow yourself to not get overwhelmed and park those other things that are screaming.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have a support network. And I think that's something that I've noticed with friends having kids, and even down to my sister having kids. We've all moved away from where we originally lived, from our hometowns, and the support networks aren't necessarily always there all the time. So say my parents live in south of France, so they've been over for my sister the last couple of weeks, and they're here for a short, intense amount of time. And then she's got a bit more support from her in-laws who live closer. But then it's like finding your network within your area where you live, because we don't all work and live in the same places that we used to, or a lot of people don't live and work in the same place either. You've often got a commute, and that's difficult, especially if you're dropping kids off at school. And I'm only speaking from, because I don't have kids myself, so I'm only speaking from what I can see friends and family who've got kids are finding. Nursery fees are through the fucking roof, and they're absolutely extortionate. I mean, rightly so, everybody should be getting paid a fair wage, but still,
I've got friends that pay more in childcare than they do in the mortgage.
Oof.
I have friends that lived in London, had amazing careers, well, they still have, to be fair, but that's just not sustainable because there's no support network there for them. So everyone has to change their lives. And I've got friends who are not having second children because the financial implication, which is such a sad state of affairs. I think it's not even to ask for anything. It's just to ask for it to be better or more malleable or more what happens if I took my lunch at 3 and I picked up the kids? Does that matter? No. But do you know what I mean? Stuff like that. But in order to do that, I have to work from home. Yeah. So it's just it's not asking for, I don't know how to describe it. It's not asking for, I'm not justifying it. It's just saying just be fair and understanding and empathetic, for us to do this. And I think it's that thing about, a lot of women have to give up their careers because the reality is you can't do it all. You can't pick up the kids at 3. And if you don't have it, you can't do it.
No, I think that's an important thing as well, is years ago, we were told as young girls back in the 90s, you can have everything. You can have a career, you can have kids, you can have a partner, you can have the house and everything else. And I think something has to give.
Yeah.
There's one ball has to be dropped or passed on to a partner and I do believe that a lot of people's partners now are helping out, especially our generation. I feel like our generation's just going come on, get washing. There's loads there that need doing. But I think it was often put on the woman because we earned less than men, and because we were seen as raising children, men were just going out to work. And that's also quite archaic in the way that kids are at school. Why are they only at school 9 till 3?
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but is it Shonda Rhimes? She does Grey's Anatomy, massive producer, director, all the above. She did a speech about sacrifice, and a question that she always gets given about how do you do it all? How do you do it all? We always get asked, how do you do it all? And he's like, well, I don't. Something always has to sacrifice. So she does this gorgeous speech, and she's like, I'm here accepting this prestigious award, but I'm missing swim class. When I have to do a rewrite of this script, I'm missing my first recital. When I'm sat reading the book at bedtime, I probably should be catching up on my emails. It's not about juggling it all. You can have it all. You just probably can't have it all at the same time. And one thing's got to go up for the other thing to go down. And I think what I have got better at, as trying to work it all out, is I block my time out, and I've started saying, if this is that time that is dedicated to this task, then that is what it is. But equally, I used to have a lot of guilt around. So I'm having a couple of hours with the kids, and we were watching Peppa Pig for a little bit of time, and then they were having a snack, and then we were playing a game or something. I'd be like, right, this is my time with the kids now, it's 2 hours. So I'd be just staring at the kids, watching them watch thinking, I'm not going to be on my phone because I want to be present. I'm not going to be doing this because I'm not going to be doing work when I'm doing this because I want to be, this is the kids' time, it's not fair. But actually, if the kids are watching Peppa Pig, that's probably a good time for me to catch up on my emails. But then what was happening is I was sort of blurring all the lines. So if actually it was time to play a game with them, I might be like looking at my phone every now and then. I was like, actually, no, it's okay to be on my phone if they're eating the breakfast, because they're eating the breakfast. Like, that's their activity for that moment. It doesn't need me at that moment in time. Obviously, sitting with them and, watching them and making sure they're okay. But I could be on my phone at that time. I could do a bit of social media waste in my life or whatever. But then actually when it's time to sit down and play a game or sit down and do some colouring or some crafting, I'm not going to have my phone at the end of the table while I'm doing that with them. Like, I need to be involved doing that with them, because actually that's a shared task. I've started blocking my time a little bit more like that, where before I thought that just because I was with the kids meant 100% that was that. And that seems to be working a bit better.
That sounds like quite a good balance. And I think you're right. Like, it is malleable. And obviously as the kids get older, that'll change as well. And you'll maybe have more time by yourself because they're more responsible, because they're older and they're able to play together without you supervising but it sounds like you've got a good support network and you're trying to work it out as you go along, which I think all of us are, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the thing we're talking about, like, don't kid a kidder. Like, nobody's got it together. Everybody's got their own fires, and it don't matter if you've got kids, not have kids, whatever it is. Everybody's got their own personality to keep up with, and their own demons. Like, everybody's trying to just survive effectively in this wild world. Like, we were talking about like Instagram and like the pros and cons and all that with my friend the other day, and literally between one thumb scroll, you can be crying, hysterical. I want to buy this. I need, like, we're overwhelmed and inundated all the time. So you've got to just laser focus on what you want or to take out of that situation in that time. I think otherwise it's just, you've got to appreciate that it's not all horses for courses about the people and personalities around you.
I find Instagram, a minefield. I love it, but I also hate it all at the same time. To the point I've ended up with a work phone and a personal phone. So my personal phone has like no social media on it, no banking apps, no emails, nothing. Because I was like down a rabbit hole on like TikTok and just then being shown things that I didn't want to be shown and didn't really want to see. And I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? I just need to turn it off, because again, I was on that roller coaster of emotions, and it's hard enough being a woman on a roller coaster of hormones, let alone add in a sprinkling of like, I think I cried over a rescue dog called T-Bone.
Oh, that's hey. I mean, I have got a group chat that I've had going since, I'd say it's over 15 years now. Maybe you're going to say that now, but has Instagram been around 15 years?
I would say, yeah, it's been around a long time, yeah.
God. Anyway, it was OG, pretty much set up straight away. For context, with people I worked with in recruitment, so that's how long ago it was. Basically, It's called Amusing Animals, and it's just funny animal clips that we've sent. And basically, over the years, I've introduced another person. There's just like maybe 6 or 7 of us. We just send funny animal clips in. And you know what? It's just so wholesome. And I'm like, sometimes I'm in a bit of a crappy mood. I go, I'm just going to look on Amusing Animals. Like, I was crying with laughter about a woman being chased by a camel last night. This is what the internet's for.
Yes.
But I'm the same as you with the boundaries. Like, I did used to have all my work email on my phone, and it became habitual because I go Instagram, personal email, Flick, work email. And I think it's that whole culture where nobody expects you to send an email on a night. Nobody expects it. And if they do, that's a different conversation. And also as well, like, if you're going to work and you're sick, you do not get a gold medal. You do not get like, oh, thank you for being booked. I mean, and it's different if you've got to get paid, you know what I mean? But nobody is sort of going, oh, thank you for sending that email that said, thank you for your email at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's just like, park it. And I think I did that very clearly. I got rid of all the work stuff off my personal phone. I have a work phone, which actually is a bit redundant at the moment. But yeah, I needed that clear separation. But I think to your point, I could probably do another filter, which is like dead time phone. Like, if I want a little bit of Instagram or whatever, I can do that. But then, like, I need a school admin phone as well. Do you know how much admin you get through from a school? Mini honest, it's insane.
My friend was saying this. So her little girl is same age as your eldest, just started school, and she was working. She actually stayed with us last week because she was working over in Homeforth, and she was like, "I've had so many messages." And then her and her husband are both in the school app, and he's like then texting her about school, and she's like, "What the hell? Like what?" And she's on set like 12 hours. She can obviously go and ring school when she needs to, but she's like, my husband's working. When are we supposed to fucking ring him?
Yeah, and so many apps and like appointments to book, first come, first serve, on the app, on the thing, on the bar. And I'm like, what happened to just sending like 20p's in a plastic bag with a slip of paper? What was wrong with that process?
Yeah. What was wrong with sending the kids home with a letter in the back?
Yeah, I know. It's exhausting. I feel like I need a phone for that.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
Admin phone.
I definitely found putting that work boundary in has helped massively. I mean, I've since taken over a Instagram account as well for another podcast, but like, so then that means I'm on my work phone a little bit more, but just turning it off and being like, right, I'm done with it. And it just clears my head a little bit. Although now I am scrolling on Vinted a little bit too much on the other phone, but
my husband said Vinny's become a personality.
Yeah, same.
I think it really has as well. Yeah. You know, when people used to be, well, we still do, I guess, and like, oh, I really like top. I'm like, oh, it was £1.50 from Primark or whatever it is. I don't actually shop Primark, but not for a thingy, just from a fast fashion thing.
Same.
But now I'm like, oh, it was Vinted. Oh, I can't not help myself, and I feel like it's like a badge of honour now, like how much I've got from Vinted, and like a second revenue stream with the kids.
I mean, mine's Vinted and charity shops. And then someone will be like, where's that from? I'm like, charity shop. Yeah. And they'll be like, where'd you get that from? Like, Vinted. And it's the same as you. Like, I've actually got to upload some stuff to Vinted tomorrow, but I've earned a bit on there. And you're like, get a buzz off selling stuff. I'm like, oh, this is great. Yeah. And then the money sits there, and then I'm like, what can I buy? What's on my favourite list on Vinted? And then I end up buying more, so the money doesn't actually come into my account.
I know. I'm exactly the same boat, but at least it's like come in and it's sitting there. I'm on the hunt for a Christmas do outfit at the moment.
Oh, nice.
Lots of sequins.
Yeah, with you. I will just pre-warn you about sequin trousers, though, if they are on your list, because I had a pair of sequin trousers. We took Naif's car to BMW to get serviced, and the crotch of the trousers, the sequins got stuck together as I walked into BMW. So it's really embarrassing. I was like walking like a penguin, and I had to go and untangle myself in the toilet.
I thought you were going to say like scratched all the seats of like a new test car or something like that, and I was like, sequin damage.
No. There were sequins everywhere.
I used to have a tassel before the Western trend, like like tassel sleeves really long, and I'd be walking through the club, and I used to get like connected to people all the time. I'm like, I have to get rid of this tassel top. They were like looped tassels. I ended up cutting every one individually to be single, so they stopped.
Yeah. Imagine the door handles you got stuck on that. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it wasn't practical, but it was beautiful.
That's always the way with fashion, though, isn't it? It's never really practical. Yeah. And then you wear practical stuff, and well, like I'm looking today, I'm in like dog walking stuff, and it's practical, but it's fuck ugly.
Yeah. I've now got to a point where I'm living in in fact, I'm looking past my screen where I'm chatting to you to my clothes rail collapsed yesterday, so it's all like a big mound on the floor. So it's inspiring me now to have a cleanse. But I'm like living in like the first quarter of my wardrobe. And that's all I'm wearing was on rotation. So I'm like, all this just needs to go back into the circle of life.
I do that. I went through a phase of doing Marie Kondo, was it?
Oh, like it, love it.
Yeah. And that stuck with me for like years. And then when we were moving house, Nath was like, oh, everything's just already in boxes, in tidy in the kitchen or whatever. And I went, yeah, you'll be able to pack it in like 5 minutes flat. And he did. And he was like, oh, actually, that was quite good. I do that with my clothes, and I'm like pretty much almost one in, one out.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same as you, otherwise I'd only wear a quarter of it.
No, I need to do, but I am quite good at going back to stuff. So like if I'm not in love with it this season, I probably could wear it again. I don't know, I'm just justifying it now. We've got a whole like vintage rotation. I've got like a set of drawers of stuff to list, a bucket that's listed, a drawer of stuff to ship. I've got a full rotation, like a little mini warehouse in the back bedroom.
I've got like the IKEA bag of stuff that's listed, and it's like tucked under like something else. But yeah, I need to put more on there. I definitely need to put more on there. I've got one last question for you.
Yes.
And answer it however you see fit. I know you've listened to the podcast, so you know what this question is. But
and I know it's coming. I still don't know how to answer it. What inspires me?
Yeah, what inspires you, T?
I again, like, look, I'm pulling a blank. It's the longest silence you've had on this one now. I'm going to have to say, like, it's the kids' future, really. Because there's, like, two ways into it. Like, I could say, like, what inspires me, like, visually, like, out and about, like, what, like, makes me want to put pen to paper and, like, get involved with someone. But actually, I guess what inspires me to keep moving and making the decisions that I keep making is that I just want freedom in a weird sense. So I listened to a podcast, it was a while ago. It was some investment banker, like billionaire type of thing. And he was known for, that's not like actually what I aspire to be. I would like to be, just to say that. Not my type of culture. But basically he's like known for, I think he like drives a Toyota, like wears jeans. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know who you mean. I can't remember his fucking name. Oh my God. And he looked exquisite on that because he was on Netflix as well, wasn't he? He did like a little like 3-part series on Netflix, and I was like, oh my God, he's dressed impeccably. But yeah, he drives like a shit car, he invests money and stuff like
and
that.
people were like, why, you've got all this money, why do you, is that because I don't care about those things? Like, I'm not bothered about those things. I'm not bothered about having the biggest car, the poshest house, the designer suit. It was like, the reason I do what I do is because I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. So, like, I want to be able to drop it all tomorrow and move to the Bahamas, bit of a stretch, but I want to be able to just decide that I want to spend more time with the kids. I want them to be able to go to Disneyland if they want to go to Disneyland. I want to be able to have choices. I want to be able to have freedom. And that's not to say that I want the biggest house or to go live on a beach somewhere and be free of the corporate shackles. That's not it. I just want to be able to have a choice and independence in the future. And I think that's what sort of drives me to keep going and making decisions, to the girls have got options and they're not limited. They can have the decision if they want the Toyota. Maybe not anything much more than that. But, like if they want the Punto or the whatever. But I want them to be able to have choices because we've built them a future where they can.
I think that's such a lovely answer, because I think you're then going to inspire your girls to be working hard, picking the careers that they want to do. And I think it's so important to see both parents like in a career that makes them happy.
Yeah. I think it's as well like, and I think loads of people say this, that when you're at school, you're sort of led to believe that it's like a teacher, a nurse, a doctor, something else, fire engine, somebody who works in an office. There just wasn't the representation of actually, like, when we go on set, how many people are there doing different jobs that even until I started this career, I had no idea existed. I think unless you sort of, again, like brought up to be quite, I think, again, on my vision board, it's a family that travels boldly and bravely. So it's like allowing them to see much more of the world and to see different opportunities and to see how different jobs work, how different people live and whatever, so that they can, again, make their choices. But my husband does a very similar job to me. So maybe they're just going to grow up thinking everybody does this job, maybe. Which can be hard and good at the same time. Because I think sometimes when you go home and if you're riled up about something and he says, for example, I don't know, what's that document? And I go, oh, it's a document. And by the time I've sort of explained it, I'm over it. I'm like, oh, you know what? Forget about it. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But if he gets it and he goes and he straight away understands, oh, yeah, I had that on set the other day, or I got that. Do you know what I mean? You suddenly can then spiral into you get it, so you can chat about it more, which is like a good thing and a bad thing, I think.
Yeah, I think because Nath, my other half, is a truck driver, he sometimes just goes like, what?
Yeah.
What? I don't understand.
Shine potatoes or whatever.
Yeah,
shine
I mean, like,
to go in.
yeah, and he'll be like, huh? But then he'll tell me something about his work, and I'll be like, what? I don't understand. But it's nice in a way that we're in different jobs, because then you do get to explain your job a little bit. But also sometimes I do just want someone to just get it. That's where I like text my friends who are in the industry and just be like, oh, this happened. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, I get that. Or like me and my friend were
set today that I used to work with. Is that
Never,
it
T,
again?
never. But no, we were moaning about paying our taxes today, you know, like trying to sort out tax and stuff. And Nave's like, well, just pay it, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but it's just annoying. And then like me and my friend will just have a rant about it. And he's like, well, I pay tax every fucking month. What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
you pay it twice a year.
Oh, yeah, it's
Get
true,
over
isn't
it.
it? I'm
Yeah.
hopefully this is going to be one of those things exclusive, but it's not. Like got my own thing starting next year, not related to this career whatsoever, just like another little weekend thing. And I was like to your point with all like the finances and stuff, I was like, how do people do all this? Like, you just don't understand any of it. It's just like another world, isn't it? When you like the actual admin on top of doing the job when you're a freelancer or you're doing your own thing. I was like, this is bamboozling. Like, how do people stay on top of it? But I guess it becomes part and parcel of what you have to do in a day.
Yeah, I mean, I go to work and then pay an accountant to do it because I don't have a sausage. So I'd rather go to work for the extra day and pay him.
Yeah, it's not worth it, is it?
No. But yeah, it's just it's wearing loads of hats and then you're like marketing it. And, you know, if you were in an agency, there'd be somebody doing the social media, there'd be somebody in the accounts, there'd be somebody in HR, there'd be somebody chasing for invoices and everything else. So you just have to do it all, which I think takes quite a lot of time that people, you know, it's not just being on set. It's probably similar to you going back to your stakeholders and stuff and explaining yourself. I've still got paperwork to do. It's just of a different kind.
Yeah.
Sometimes just as scary because it's the tax office you're chatting to, not a stakeholder.
All in the same camp out with me.
Yeah. They're all doing stuff I don't understand. So yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I've really enjoyed chatting to you, and it's really interesting to kind of dive into the corporate side of the creative world as well. And hopefully people will now know and understand what your job is, because I think it's sounds like a really cool job. And I think your journey is so cool as well, the way you've come around, like from a qualified design engineer
Female
to now
Engineer
being
of the
like,
Year. I missed that off. Female Engineer of the Year. Yeah.
what?
I got a Waterstones voucher. Oh, what was the other
Nice.
one? No, it was before Waterstones. Borders.
Oh, Borders.
I got
Yeah.
a Borders
Yeah.
voucher and a silver plate.
I hope you still got that silver
My mum
plate.
has somewhere. With like, I remember moving her house once, and oh god, I'm going off on a tangent, and you were wrapping it up, and I moved this box, and it was really heavy. And I was like, "What is in this box?" And she was like, and I opened it up, and it was like just chunks of metal that had like small wedges, like practice machining I must have been doing. It was really like a lump of steel, a shoebox of steel that like, must have weighed about, I don't know, 4 or 5 stone. What did you get there? Very good garden.
You've just reminded me of during COVID, when my mum and dad were halfway through moving to the south of France. They found my cake topper from when I was 21 that was shaped like the car I had at the time, and it was sugar, what was it called? It was like sugar icing or something. And my dad, we were all on a Zoom call, and my dad tried to like stab it in the middle and cut it, and it was rock solid. And I was like, Mum, why have you kept this for 12 years?
Like, my mum anymore. We've had like some, I'm really close to my mum, but we've had some like serious screaming matches when it's come to her moving house. And the last time I said I'll never do it again is when I was basically, have you seen the episode of Friends where you sit with all those sugar sachets? That happened to me with like floppy disks.
Oh no.
And I was like, why have you got so many floppy disks? I went, nobody even has floppy disks in the computer anymore, and they're brand new. They were like, you know, in a packet if you bought them reduced. And I was like, so they've not even got anything on it that you'd be worried that you could ever lose, which is not a thing anyway, I don't think, with floppy disks. And 2, this is not a thing. And she was like, no, I better keep him. I was like, oh, that's it, I'm out. Never. I refuse to move floppy disks from one house to another. So, yeah.
I love that was your limit.
Honestly. Between that and I got stung by a bee when she like wedged me in, I was like, no, I'm done. Anyway, you did say tangents welcome, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, I did. On that lovely floppy disk tangent, I shall leave it there, because I think we can't beat a floppy disk. Like, I've just got this best image of you opening a cupboard and just being flooded by floppy disks.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been lovely. It's always lovely to catch up with you, regardless of the situation. So hopefully I'll see you on set too. Yeah, thanks for having me and listening to me. And I guess, if anyone has ever got any questions about as I said to you before, when I told everyone I was leaving, everyone signed my card, The Darkside. If you haven't got any questions, just reach out.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dee.
All right, love. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please rate, follow, and share, as it really helps this little podcast out. And if you have found value in the podcast and you have the means to, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. This will help keep the podcast going. Join me next week for another fantastic guest. Bye!